Before this moment, they tried to forget you. They distracted themselves. They ran from their emotions. They convinced themselves that silence was strength and distance was freedom. But something unexpected has just happened. Something so powerful that it shattered the emotional walls they spent so long building around their heart. Your soulmate has received news that changes everything. And for the first time in a very long time, they can no longer escape the truth of this connection. Right now, while you are listening to these words, their mind is replaying memories they thought were buried forever. Your energy is returning to them in quiet moments, late nights, and sudden emotional waves they cannot explain logically. The soul is awakening where the ego once tried to remain asleep, because some connections are not ordinary. Some people enter your life to awaken your deepest emotional truths. This was never just attraction, never just timing, never just coincidence. The wait and G is ending because destiny has started moving behind the scenes, and the person who once resisted this connection is now beginning to realize that losing you emotionally may have been the greatest mistake of their life. Divine timing is one of the most misunderstood experiences in human connection, because people often believe that love should happen according to personal desire, immediate emotion, or external readiness. But some connections operate beyond ordinary timing. They unfold through emotional maturity, psychological transformation, and inner awakening. When two souls share a deep bond, there are often invisible processes taking place beneath the surface, long before any visible reunion or communication occurs. This is why periods of silence, distance, confusion, or waiting are not always signs of failure. Sometimes they are necessary stages of preparation. Many people suffer during these waiting periods because the human mind craves certainty. It wants immediate answers, instant movement, and emotional reassurance. When nothing appears to happen externally, the mind assumes the connection is fading or dying. Yet internally, profound changes may already be unfolding. Silence can become a sacred space where both individuals are forced to confront parts of themselves they once avoided. Without distractions, emotional truths begin rising from the unconscious mind. In deep soulmate connections, timing rarely depends only on romantic feelings. One person may awaken emotionally before the other. One may recognize the depth of the bond instantly, while the other resists it out of fear, emotional wounds, pride, or unresolved pain from the past. This imbalance creates separation, but not necessarily permanent loss. The distance itself often becomes part of the transformation. Through absence, people begin understanding the true value of what they once overlooked. Divine timing works through emotional evolution rather than human impatience. Life places people into experiences that slowly break old patterns, illusions, and defense mechanisms. A person who once feared vulnerability may experience loneliness so deeply that they finally understand the importance of genuine connection. Someone who avoided emotional honesty may eventually become exhausted from pretending not to care. Another may chase superficial relationships only to realize that no temporary distraction can replace a meaningful soul connection. This process is painful because transformation always requires the collapse of old identities. The ego resists change. It wants control, certainty, and emotional protection. But soul connections challenge the ego completely. They force individuals to face their hidden fears of rejection, abandonment, intimacy, and self-worth. Many people run from this intensity at first because genuine emotional exposure feels dangerous. It removes masks. It destroys emotional illusions. It reveals truths people try to hide even from themselves. During the waiting period, both individuals are often being prepared in ways they cannot fully understand at the time. One person may be learning self-love instead of emotional dependency. The other may be learning accountability, honesty, or emotional courage. Certain life experiences occur specifically to awaken deeper awareness. Painful endings, disappointments, isolation, or unexpected realizations all become psychological mirrors guiding the soul toward growth. This is why forcing timing rarely works. When someone tries to control the outcome through desperation, obsession, or emotional pressure, it usually creates more resistance. Real transformation cannot be rushed. Emotional awakening happens naturally when a person becomes internally ready to face the truth. Until then, even the strongest connection may remain blocked by fear or denial. What makes divine timing so powerful is that it often operates invisibly before becoming visible externally. A soulmate may appear distant while internally thinking about the connection constantly. They may suppress emotions outwardly while privately struggling with memories, regret, longing, or emotional confusion. Sometimes the soul understands the connection long before the conscious mind accepts it. This creates inner conflict because the person feels emotionally pulled towards something they cannot logically explain. Over time, however, emotional truth becomes impossible to ignore. Life continues presenting reminders, realizations, and inner awakenings until the person finally confronts what they truly feel. This moment often arrives unexpectedly. Something shifts internally. A person suddenly sees the connection differently. The emotional walls weaken. The running stops feeling meaningful. And the silence that once felt comfortable begins feeling unbearable. The waiting period then reveals its deeper purpose. It was never empty time. It was preparation. It was emotional restructuring. It was the slow unfolding of psychological readiness. Every delay carried hidden lessons. Every silence forced deeper self-awareness. Every painful moment contributed to inner transformation. Divine timing does not mean passive suffering or endlessly waiting for someone to return. It means trusting that what is genuinely meant for emotional growth will unfold when both individuals are capable of receiving it consciously. It requires patience, but also personal evolution. Instead of becoming consumed by fear, the soul learns surrender. Instead of chasing control, it learns trust. And through that process, the connection either transforms into something real and lasting, or it teaches profound lessons that permanently awaken the individual from within. When a person receives unexpected news that awakens deep feelings, the experience is rarely simple or logical. It creates an emotional disturbance that reaches beneath the surface of ordinary thought and touches hidden layers of the psyche. A soulmate connection often remains buried under distractions, denial, daily responsibilities, or emotional defenses for long periods of time. Someone may convince themselves they have moved on, forgotten the connection, or emotionally detached from it. Yea. The unconscious mind stores emotional truth differently than the conscious mind. What the heart genuinely experiences never disappears completely. It waits silently beneath the surface until something powerful activates it again. Unexpected news acts like an emotional trigger. It interrupts psychological routines and forces the individual to confront feelings they thought were under control. This news may come in many forms. Sometimes it is hearing about your growth, success, healing, or transformation. Sometimes it is learning that you may no longer be emotionally available in the same way. Sometimes it is simply hearing your name after a long silence, or discovering that your energy is no longer waiting in the same place emotionally. What matters is not always the information itself, but the emotional reaction it creates internally. The human mind often suppresses emotions when they feel too intense or overwhelming. Many people distance themselves from deep connections because they are a relationship's awakened vulnerability, fear, insecurity, or unresolved emotional wounds. Instead of facing those emotions honestly, they escape into work, distractions, other relationships, emotional avoidance, or silence. Outwardly, they may appear calm and unaffected, but internally, the connection continues existing in hidden psychological spaces. Then suddenly, unexpected news breaks through those defenses. A person who once believed they had complete emotional control finds themselves unable to stop thinking. Memories begin resurfacing with unusual intensity. Certain moments replay repeatedly in the mind. The emotional numbness they once relied on starts disappearing. This creates inner conflict because the conscious mind tries to maintain emotional distance while the unconscious begins demanding acknowledgement of deeper truth. In soulmate connections, this awakening can feel almost unsettling because it forces emotional honesty. The individual realizes that what they felt was not via superficial attraction or temporary attachment. The connection affected them at a much deeper psychological level than they previously admitted. Often this realization arrives during moments of emotional vulnerability. Loneliness, disappointment, personal failure, emotional exhaustion, or major life changes weaken the walls people build around their emotions. In those moments, the truth they avoided begins rising naturally. Unexpected news becomes symbolic because it represents more than information. It represents confrontation with reality. The person begins understanding that time did not erase the connection. Distance did not destroy it. Silence did not remove its emotional impact. Instead, the emotions remain dormant, waiting for the right psychological moment to awaken fully. This awakening also creates regret. In many cases, a person starts reflecting on choices they made while emotionally disconnected. They remember opportunities they ignored, conversations left unfinished, emotions left unspoken, or moments where fear controlled their actions. The ego, which once protected them through emotional avoidance, suddenly becomes weaker under the weight of realization. They begin seeing the connection with greater clarity and emotional depth. At the same time, this process can feel chaotic internally because awakening deep emotions disrupts emotional stability. The person may experience confusion, restlessness, nostalgia, or intense longing without fully understanding why. Their daily routines no longer distract them as effectively. Quiet moments become emotionally heavy because thoughts of the connection return repeatedly. The soul demands attention toward what the mind tried to suppress. One of the most difficult aspects of this experience is recognizing that genuine emotional bonds cannot be replaced easily. Many people attempt to move forward through superficial distractions, believing that time or new experiences will erase emotional attachment. But soulmate connections operate differently because they touch identity, emotional memory, and unconscious desire. The person eventually realizes that nobody else created the same emotional depth, inner recognition, or psychological impact. Unexpected news can therefore become the catalyst for emotional awakening because it destroys illusion. It forces the individual to see that their feelings never truly disappeared. They were only hidden beneath layers of fear, pride, avoidance, or emotional confusion. Once those layers crack, the emotions rise rapidly and powerfully. This awakening changes the way the person sees both themselves and the connection. They begin understanding why certain memories never faded completely, why thoughts of you returned during emotionally vulnerable moments, why silence never brought true peace, why every attempt to fully disconnect felt incomplete internally. The news becomes the moment where emotional truth finally breaks through denial. The soul recognizes is what the ego tried to escape. And once that recognition fully awakens inside a person, their inner world can never return to the way it was before. Hidden emotions and spiritual connection are powerful forces because they often exist beneath ordinary awareness. Many people move through life believing they fully understand their feelings. Yet the deepest emotions are usually buried within the unconscious mind. A person may speak calmly, behave normally, and even convince themselves they feel nothing significant, while internally, a profound emotional bond continues growing silently. This happens especially in soulmate connections, because such relationships awaken parts of the psyche that cannot easily be controlled or explained logically. Hidden emotions develop when feelings become too intense, confusing, or frightening for the conscious mind to handle openly. Instead of expressing vulnerability honestly, people suppress their emotions to protect themselves psychologically. Fear of rejection, abandonment, emotional exposure, or loss of control causes individuals to hide what they truly feel. Sometimes they deny their emotions completely, because acknowledging them would force major internal change. The ego prefers safety and emotional predictability. While deep spiritual connections demand transformation and surrender, a soulmate connection disrupts emotional comfort because it reaches beyond surface attraction. It creates an inner recognition that feels familiar, almost as if the soul remembers something the mind cannot fully explain. This recognition can be deeply unsettling. A person suddenly feels emotionally seen in ways they never experienced before. Their hidden insecurities, desires, fears, wounds, and longings begin surfacing naturally in the presence of the other person. This intensity often causes emotional conflict. Part of them feels drawn toward the connection with overwhelming force, while another part resists it out of fear. The more powerful the connection becomes, the stronger the emotional defenses may appear externally. Some individuals become distant, silent, emotionally unavailable, or confusing precisely because the connection affects them so deeply internally. Their actions may contradict their feelings because they are struggling psychologically with emotions they cannot fully process. Spiritual connection differs from ordinary attachment because it operates beyond external circumstances. Physical distance, silence, or separation may exist. Yet, the emotional energy between two people remains active internally. Thoughts return unexpectedly. Memories surface during quiet moments. Certain emotions appear without logical explanation. Even when people try to move on consciously, the connection continues influencing them beneath the surface. The unconscious mind communicates through emotions, intuition, dreams, patterns, and emotional reactions. This is why hidden feelings often reveal themselves indirectly. A person may suddenly feel emotional after hearing your name, seeing something that reminds them of you, or experiencing loneliness during important life moments. They may not understand why these reactions happen so strongly, but the soul responds before the conscious mind fully catches up. One reason hidden emotions become so powerful is because suppressed feelings do not disappear. What remains unexpressed continues existing internally over time. Emotional suppression creates psychological tension because the heart wants truth while the ego wants protection. The longer someone avoids their genuine feelings, the more emotionally restless they often become. Silence may protect them temporarily, but internally, the connection continues demanding acknowledgement. Spiritual connections also tend to activate emotional growth. They expose wounds people previously ignored within themselves. Someone who fears vulnerability may suddenly become aware of how deeply they avoid intimacy. A person who struggles with self-worth may realize they push away genuine love because they do not feel deserving of it. These realizations are uncomfortable because they challenge long-standing emotional patterns and identities. This is why soulmate connections often involve periods of separation or emotional confusion. The connection itself becomes a mirror reflecting unresolved inner conflicts. Both individuals are forced to confront themselves more honestly. Hidden emotions rise slowly toward the surface until they can no longer remain buried. Eventually, emotional truth becomes stronger than emotional avoidance. The soul grows tired of pretending. The person begins recognizing that what they feel cannot be explained away through logic alone. The connection continues existing despite distance, silence, or attempts to suppress it. What once seemed confusing starts feeling undeniably real internally. The spiritual bond then transforms from something hidden into something emotionally undeniable. The person realizes the connection affected them far more deeply than they admitted to themselves. and once hidden emotions fully awaken into conscious awareness, they begin changing the person from within in ways that cannot easily be reversed. Separation in deep soul connections is often misunderstood because most people associate distance with endings, rejection, or emotional failure. But in many profound emotional bonds, separation becomes part of the transformation itself. It is not always punishment or loss. Sometimes it is a psychological and spiritual process designed to force inner growth that could not happen while both people remained emotionally dependent on the connection. When two individuals meet in a soulmate connection, they awaken hidden aspects within each other almost immediately. Deep emotions surface quickly. Old wounds become visible. Insecurities, fears, desires, and unresolved emotional patterns rise from the unconscious mind. While the connection may feel intense and meaningful, many people are not emotionally prepared for the transformation such a bond demands. Instead of embracing vulnerability openly, they react through fear, confusion, avoidance, or emotional imbalance. This is where separation often begins. One person may withdraw because the emotional intensity feels overwhelming. Another may cling too tightly out of fear of losing the connection. Sometimes both individuals become trapped in emotional patterns that prevent healthy growth. The relationship then enters a stage where distance becomes necessary, not because the connection lacks meaning, but because both souls still carry unresolved inner conflicts.